Is it possible for a first-person shooter to feel simultaneously like Isaac Newton's fever dream, a Volkswagen commercial set on the moons of Saturn, and the most elaborate game of capture the flag ever smuggled onto a LAN party hard drive? Answer: obviously, otherwise I'm wasting a healthy chunk of carpal tunnel mileage. Tribes 2 is that contradictory chimera. Released in March 2001 by Dynamix under Sierra's wobbly banner, it strapped turbojets to armored barbarians, handed them frisbees made of blue plasma, and said, "Now glide across kilometers of sculpted terrain faster than your Pentium 3 can stream textures." Underrated or overrated? Underrated by the vast PC populace who bounced off its launch day bugs. Overrated only by nostalgic diehards who still hear the VGS voice macro jingle in their sleep. Yes, I'm talking to myself. Fundamental or forgettable? Fundamental if you care about how online shooters learn to breathe in 3 dimensions. Forgettable only if you think momentum is for physics textbooks and not for Friday night flag runs. Buckle up, spam VGS. Need a ride. And let's carve this gravity-defying mountain of memories, one friction-free ski at a time. Historical context: early 2001 sat at a crossroads of digital evolution. Dreamcast hardware lay in hospice. The Counter-Strike retail box glowed like contraband on store shelves. And EverQuest players had just discovered that you could nap mid-raid by taping a penny to the heel key. Sierra, meanwhile, was wrestling a prolonged identity crisis. They had once ruled adventure gaming with King's Quest and Gabriel Knight, detoured through FMV melodrama, and finally stumbled into shooter relevance when Dynamix's Starsiege Tribes 1998 proved dial-up modems could handle 32-player arenas packed with jetpacks and mortar spam. The original Tribes wasn't a mainstream smash, but it turned dorm Ethernet cables into glowing conduits for shouted Shazbot macros, a linguistic badge for anyone fluent in IRC sarcasm. I was 21, chronically broke, and spending more hours inside XP Arcade, a neon-fried temple of DDR pads and nicotine-scarred pool tables, than in lecture halls. Tribes 2 shipped in North America on 29th March 2001. European boxes followed 13th April, and I blew my week's grocery budget on a glossy copy before the shrink wrap cooled. The box promised 128-player warfare, 64 per team, drivable vehicles, built-in voice chat, and maps so vast you'd need bungee cords and a compass just to find the enemy flag. It also promised seamless online authentication via Sierra's brand new World Opponent Network. Famous last words. Day 1, half the community stared at a login screen that brick-walled harder than a Nokia 3310 submerged in quick-dry cement. Forums ignited, IRC melted, and I discovered that the only thing scarier than a heavy armor mortar round is a 2001 tech support queue. Under roughly 700 megabytes of emergency patches, my 56K groaned like a haunted accordion, though lived a shooter nobody else dared build. Quake 3 and Unreal Tournament were tight boxing rings. Counter-Strike worshiped corner-peeking realism. Tribes 2 asked, what if every surface is a ski slope? Gravity is negotiable, and your grandma can fly a gunship if she memorizes the macro keys. It arrived before the term massively multiplayer FPS existed, a full year ahead of Battlefield 1942's spawn camping bombers, and more than a decade before Titanfall reminded gamers that verticality is delicious. Dynamix's V12 engine, later open-sourced as Torque, rendered rolling hills, volumetric clouds, and team-colored force fields without demanding your GPU file for alimony. On a GeForce 2 GTS, it felt like IMAX. On my creaking TNT-2, it looked like a pop-up book, yet I was too busy scribbling ski trajectory formulas in the margins of my calculus notes to care. Mechanics. If you've never skied in Tribes, imagine Mario Kart's Rainbow Road stretched across the plains of Mars, then slather it with enough grease to clog Aristotle's arteries. Tap the jump key while descending a slope and friction evaporates. Suddenly, your 400-kilogram soldier is a bobsled in disco armor, hitting 100, 130, even 200 kph before terrain morphs into a launch ramp. Pulse the jetpack at the valley floor, transform that horizontal inertia into ballistic loft, tilt your mouse, and you're carving arcs that'd make NASA interns quit college. Momentum isn't just a feature, it's scripture. Servers could detect novices by the sad thunk-thunk of footsteps climbing hills. Veterans were silver streaks along the horizon, flinging spin-fuser discs while mashing voice macros and humming shoutcaster commentary. Armor classes gate the dance. Lights are caffeinated hummingbirds, perfect for flag capping. Heavies are walking artillery, lumbering, terrifying, unstoppable if a bomber drops them onto your roof. Medium armor splits the difference, often patrolling generators or escorting flags with chain guns. Underpinning it all is the blue energy bar. Jetpacks, shields, and a handful of weapons share that resource, so every duel becomes a spreadsheet of muscle memory. Burn one more burst and you'll crash land. Hold back and you'll eat a disc to the dome. And come the toys. 6 vehicles define Tribes 2's sandbox. Wildcat Grav Cycle, a speeder bike so light it sneezes off cliffs. Shrike Fighter, a VTOL death kite armed with laser cannon. Beowulf Tank, slow, surly, hilariously capable of ski jumping if the driver is suicidal. Thundersword Bomber demands a pilot and a bombardier who can compute parabolas on caffeine alone. Havoc Transport, soccer mom minivan for armored dads, fits 5 and still has cup holders. Jericho Mobile Point Base, an elephantine toaster on stilts containing spawn stations and map sensors. Buying these beasts drains credits earned through kills and objectives, so pilots who slam shrikes into pine trees hear about it in global chat. I would apologize to my 2001 teammates again, but the statute of limitations on Shrike's shame has surely expired. Inside each sprawling base hums a generator. Destroy it and the lights die, force fields fizzle, turrets go mute, and defenders wail in chat. My favorite role was light offense. Ski in, shotgun 2 discs into the gen room, slap a satchel charge, yell gens down, and evaporate. Equal parts suicide bomber and team MVP. The post-explosion darkness wasn't just tactical, it felt cinematic, like you'd kicked open a stage door. New to Tribes 2 was the Command Circuit, a satellite map where a team-elected leader could ping waypoints, cue supply drops, or draw attack lines in neon scribble. On public servers, commanders were often ignored, or meme-scribbled phallic shapes. In competitive ladders, the old Tribal War and TWL divisions, a good commander was gold, part chess grandmaster, part air traffic controller. Our broadside redux strat used a Jericho base dropped behind the enemy's tower so our heavies could spawn Camp Geans from inside their own courtyard. When it worked, we felt like space-age Danny Oceans. When it flopped, we blamed packet loss. And underlying every callout was the hallowed VChat macro system. VGS for Need a Ride. VC3 for Defend Our Base. VEH for Shazbot, the universal curse. Macros launched quicker than neurons. To this day, ex-tribals reflexively shout VGO, good to go, when the microwave finishes. Not everything was funky. Launch day instability verged on legend. Memory leaks, weapons that detonated inside barrels, sudden server lockups. Authentication servers collapsed so often that modders eventually wrote their own replacement. The 2009 Tribes Next patch, which still authenticates players today. Even when the game stabilized, new blood bounced off the Himalaya steep learning curve. Yet the ones who stayed cultivated a cultural petri dish of mods. Lack Rabbit, Team Rabbit 2, Classic Construction, each bending the ski physics into new subgenres of death ballet. Legacy and influence commercially, Tribes 2 would never challenge Counter-Strike or even return to Castle Wolfenstein. Sierra's internal numbers list roughly 245,000 US units by December 2001, with the entire US franchise, including the first game and later budget reissues, hitting about 480,000 by mid-2006. Respectable, but not enough to insulate Sierra from Vivendi's corporate blender. Dynamix was shuttered 5 months after launch, leaving Torca to be licensed out by Garage Games for the cost of a nice dinner. Indirectly, that affordable engine helped mid-2000s indies flourish. Marble Blast and dozens of student projects trace lineage to code born for tribal warfare. Design ripples are subtler but undeniable. The fetish for movement as skill now saturates competitive shooters. Titanfall's wall runs, Apex Legends' slide hops, Overwatch's Pharaoh duels. They all echo the lone truth Tribes 2 hammered home. Give players frictionless mobility and they'll invent balletic gunfights you never storyboarded. Integrated voice chat? Standard now, revolutionary in 2001. Command overlays? See PlanetSide, see Squad, see Battlefield 2042's ping wheel. The IP itself meandered. Tribes Vengeance 2004 added a single-player campaign, nerfed classic skiing, and died a noble but quiet death. Tribes Ascend 2012 recaptured the speed, yet strangled under free-to-play grind. Enthusiasts still declare Tribes 2 the platonic ideal, open scripting, privately run servers, and just enough jank to keep meta stale. Why niche then? Launch Fiasco Plus Merciless Difficulty Curve. A 16 square kilometer CTF map is misery if half your team refuses to play defense. In the Xbox Live era, randoms could insult you by voice. In 2001, they typed macro spam until your brain dripped out your ear. Oddly, that friction forged friendships. Pickup pug nights turned into weekend scrims, turned into real-life meetups where we pretended shouting Shazbot in a bar was socially acceptable. Closing paragraph plus score. Reinstalling Tribes 2 in 2025 requires community wrappers, open ALDLs, and maybe an offering to the DirectX spirit. But once the menu fades and you're hurtling over a snow-dusted valley at 180 kilometers per hour, spin fuser disc blazing toward an unsuspecting heavy, the decades compressed to a heartbeat. Bugs persist. I spawned without a torso last week. Classic. And the learning curve still qualifies as an Olympic ski jump. Yet no modern shooter nails the poetry of two flag carriers ricocheting across alpine ridges like subatomic particles in a hadron collider. Sessions end with palms sweaty, adrenaline buzzing, mousepad soaked in existential joy. Final verdict, 8.8 out of 10. Subtract points for the catastrophic launch scars and the onboarding flogging. Add them back for raw audacity for built-in voice chat before Xbox Live. For 128 player chaos years ahead of its time. And for teaching anyone willing to listen that gravity is merely a suggestion. If the next big FPS can't make me grin like I did blind mortaring a generator from orbit in 2001, it probably isn't funky enough. Now pardon me, I have to ski down an actual hill and whisper VGB, I'm on it, to nobody in particular. Friction is a lie, and Tribes 2 proved it.